Welcome, everyone. We're honored to have today, once again, Dr. Wagner and Mr. Stephen Davis. Dr. Wagner is a graduate of Des Moines University College of Osteopathic Medicine and received a lifetime board certification in AOBFT. She earned her fellow award in ACOP and a distinguished fellow award at the ACOFP, which is Conclave of Fellows, in 2015. She currently serves as the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Professor in Primary Care and the Chair of the Curriculum and Admission Committee at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine. Dr. Wagner has practiced osteopathic family medicine in her own practice and as well as employed physicians. She has served as a Director of Medical Education and Program Director for the Family Residency Program at Lake Mead Hospital. And she also spent years working in occupational medicine at Regional Medical Center as well. She has been at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine since 2013 and was former assistant professor and clinical physician lead the Family Health Services Clinic at Touro University College of Medicine. Mr. Davis has wore many hats at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine, and she currently serves as the senior admission director at Touro University, California, and also has a bachelor's from Cal State East Bay and a master's from Touro University. In her spare time, he enjoys spending time with family, reading various books in fiction, science, fiction, and fantasy genre. So thank you again for joining us. And also, Mr. Davis thinks I'm a pain in the, but that's a whole different story.
I'm a what?
You think that I'm a pain in the you know what, but that's a whole different story. Just kidding.
For those of you that don't know, I have known Jobin for many years. We were talking about that before you came in, that if you've ever gone to the UC Davis pre-med, pre-public health event, that event has evolved from a seed that was planted from Jubin when he was at American River College and ran an event there for several years. So we have known each other professionally for quite some time.
Yes, and he's trying to forget that. He's like, anyways, sorry. All right. Well, Dr. Wagner has a presentation to start off with, and then we'll go to question and answer.
Give
You
me
could share
just
your.
Give me just a moment, Jubin. Just say, I would like to say that we have an hour and a half today, which is longer than many of the presentations that we have time for. Um, Typically, we don't spend a lot of time on admissions requirements in these types of presentations because, frankly, it's my job and the job of my staff to be available for questions and providing information. And there's a lot on our website. So the bulk of of the entire presentation today from Dr. Wagner is going to focus on our DO program, our Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine program. And I will be available clearly here as questions come up about admissions. And if I need to talk about that afterwards, I can do that. But we want to give Dr. Wagner enough time to really go into depth about the program itself and make sure that you get that information because although she makes herself available quite a bit, she's not necessarily paid to be made available to talk to applicants. That is my job. So, Dr. Wagner.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So as you've heard, my name is Dr. Alesia Wagner. I am an osteopathic physician. I am board certified in osteopathic family medicine and osteopathic manipulative treatment, and have been for a long, long time. We'll just leave it there. I'm a graduate of Des Moines University College of Osteopathic Medicine. I am the current Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at Touro California College of Osteopathic Medicine. And academic affairs are the people who run the curriculum. So we're involved in the entirety of the four-year curriculum and also the day-to-day management and operations of the first two preclinical years on our campus. I've also been president of our State Osteopathic Association, president of our State Family Medicine Association, and so can answer questions for you about a lot of different things. We'll start with a little presentation, and then I will let you can interrupt and put questions in the chat, but Jubin, I won't necessarily be looking at those. So if there's something that shouldn't wait to the end, please feel free to
I'll monitor that.
unmute or Stephen unmute
Yeah.
and let me know.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll go through it and then take questions at the end. Let me put this in slideshow, which I can do. I know how to do that. Beautiful. So I like to start with a little bit about osteopathic medicine. And the reason I do that is if you're applying to an osteopathic medical school, you should know what osteopathic medicine is. So this is an older picture of a amazing man in 1892. His name was Andrew Taylor Still, and initially he was an allopathic physician or an MD. When he finally passed away, he was Andrew Taylor Still, MD, DO. He opened the first osteopathic medical school, the American School of Osteopathy. If you've done any research into osteopathic medical schools, it's now known as the A.T. Still University, starting out in Kirksville, Missouri, and then they also have a campus in Arizona. The very first class opened with 21 students, and I think very notably, 6 of those 21 were women. And if you think about anything you've learned in history, to think about someone having 6 women in a medical school class in 1892 was pretty impressive. Slide changer, here we go. All right. So who was A.T. Still? He was a physician, he was an abolitionist, he was a Civil War surgeon, he was a Methodist minister, he was a father and a husband. And he became very disillusioned from the standard medical practice of his time after he lost his wife and 3 children from spinal meningitis. Felt that allopathic medicine should have been able to do more and they couldn't. We're all thinking 1892, it was pretty amazing that they did whatever they did, but he felt very disillusioned and he started searching for additional ways to facilitate healing in the body. He observed, learned, and taught new ways, bringing out innate health in the human body. And that's sort of a theme. Some of why I'm telling you this is these are little pieces of themes that you want to look up and learn a little more about, because if you should get an interview at an osteopathic medical school in the future, or when you're filling out your primary or secondary statements, these might be little tidbits you can include based on your knowledge. This is my favorite quote of Dr. Still. It's the job of the osteopathic physician to find the health. Anyone can find the disease. We don't have to talk about anything about this statement, except I put it up there for you all to consider. I like that. I like that as a statement. I like asking people what they think it means. Why is it more important to find health than it is to find disease? So as you're thinking about that, you can start to get some insight into what osteopathic principles and practice would teach you. So let's get real technical for a minute here. What is a DO? Fully trained and licensed physician in the United States and many other countries. There are only 2 types of fully licensed physicians in the US, MDs and DOs. The major difference is that the DOs use the tenets and use of a structural assessment in manual medicine in the treatment of their patients, which may include hands-on work such as OMT. But it's our osteopathic tenets and philosophies that actually set us apart. Both require 4 years of college, 4 years of osteopathic or allopathic medical school, 3 board-style licensure exams. In the DO world, it's called COMLEX, and complete training in the specialty of your choice. And DOs can be any specialty, just like an MD can. How vast is osteopathic medicine? Last I made this slide, which was less than a year ago, 42 different osteopathic medical schools in the United States, 64 campuses, and many other countries are recognizing US trained DOs as fully licensed physicians. And that's really key. You will learn if you do some reading that Great Britain, Canada has osteopaths, but they are not trained as fully licensed physicians. And if they were trained there, have very limited scope of practice. If you go to one of those countries and want to work and you were trained in the US, you can get a license to practice as a fully licensed physician. You heard me mention the tenets. This is something if you should get an interview or when you're thinking about how do I explain why DO, if you can bring these thoughts into your discussion, you help yourself immensely. The body is a dynamic unit of function. It includes the mind, body, and spirit. You can think about that so simply as when you feel sick, if you have even just a bad cold, if you don't have the mindset that I'm going to be better, start getting better right away, I need to still do these things, you could lay in bed and feel miserable much longer. So all of these things play a role. The body possesses self-regulatory mechanisms. It's capable of self-regulation, self-healing, and health maintenance. That does not mean that it will always self-heal, but it's capable of it. So can we help the body find its abilities to also self-regulate and self-heal? Structure and function are interrelated. I can think of anything you may have as a hobby, a sport, some activity, something you do, making a meal, and think if the structure of that is right, then the way that functions does the right thing. If I structurally make a healthy meal, I'm going to allow the human body that's eating it to function better than if I just had cookies and popcorn. So you can see where this is an important theory. And the fourth tenet is rational treatment should be based on the above three. So now we're going to go a little bit into Touro University, California. And specifically, I'm going to talk about the College of Osteopathic Medicine. And I know all of you have, have been working in whatever programs you're in. We also have a one-year Master of Science in the Medical Health Sciences program that if people have questions about, Mr. Davis is very happy to answer questions. It does have a couple of pathways to potentially get into the osteopathic medical school affiliated with it. What I love about working at Touro
Dr.
is,
Wagner,
yes,
as you there's two questions that have come into the,
Okay.
Actually, hold that. I'm gonna hold those questions till we get done.
Okay, you got it. As one of the things about Touro that I adore is that we are true to our mission. You can read a mission statement about a school and wonder if they really do it. I'm going to encourage you when you get to the medical school application level, open the mission to the schools you're applying to and read them. Make sure that what you see strikes home with you. I often get asked, what makes a great candidate for TUCOM? And my answer is read our mission. And if you think of that mission as something you were looking at a dictionary and you could see your face right there as an example of it, you're a good fit for TUCOM. But if what you see in this mission, doesn't tickle your fancy, you may not love it here. The key is who upholds the values, philosophy, and practice of osteopathic medicine, committed to primary care. Does that mean you have to be a primary care physician? It does not, but committed to it, and a holistic approach to the patient. We advance the profession. We serve students and society through innovative pre-doctoral and postdoctoral education, research, community service, multidisciplinary and osteopathic clinical services. And we're going to talk about a number of those. I love my little facts. I think we're now at 13 years in a row that we have ranked top 15 nationally in graduates matching into primary care. I think this year we were number 5. This happens very routinely for us. Primary care is family medicine, general pediatrics, and general internal medicine. These numbers are from our class of 2021, our COMLEX pass rates. COMLEX is your board exam. USMLE is the exam DOs do not have to take, so we don't spend a lot of time focusing on them. Fewer and fewer DO students are taking USMLE, and our pass rates have still remained very close to national average. A lot of the national averages have dropped since COVID, and so everybody's still figuring all of that out. We're the #1 medical school in the state of California for preparing primary care physicians who serve in disadvantaged and rural populations in California. If that strikes you, that's who you see yourself being, we may be the right place for you to go to medical school. Our class of 2026, 89% were from California. 27, I believe, was right around the same number. 28 was around the same number. Why? Not because we have an overwhelming preference for Californians. That's who applies. California is the largest state for exporting medical students outside of the state. There are not enough medical schools in California for the people who want to go to school. So bear that in mind. And we have a dual degree program, DO and Masters of Public Health, that averages anywhere from 10 to 15% on any given year. It is, of our students who do both, it is the largest in the profession, and it allows you to complete both degrees in the 4-year time period. So you don't have to do an extra year. We're very service and community connected. Student Run Free Clinic is located in downtown Vallejo. It is multi professional. So we have our DO students, our PA students, our pharmacy students, our nursing students, all doing different things. And a lot of why our DO students go there is they get to practice their OMT skills. And the majority of the patients that come there come because they're going to get OMT. And it's something they couldn't find with their family doctors. MOBEC is our Mobile Diabetes Education Center. We have this large bus that is equipped and takes students from all the colleges out into the community to provide diabetes screening, education, vaccines. It's been amazing having it. We have the Diabetes Prevention Program. This serves as an elective that all 2Com students can take, where you can get a certificate in becoming a coach. It's an NI, I think it's a CDC program for diabetes prevention, and you get a certificate as a coach. So you spend the time learning how to be a coach. And if you do that in your first year, then you might even in your second year be able to get a cohort of patients that you work with and coach them. So it's exciting. We also have Project Happy. Project Happy is where students with the Vallejo School District, there are some children, parents welcome, where they talk to children and try and teach them about lifestyle, food, diet, healthy activities, so that they can work with them, and they encourage full family involvement. We have extracurriculars. We have more than 100 clubs. Not all of them stay active every year. Sometimes it varies on what the students want, but we have everything from individual interest groups to state and national representation. We have multiple electives. Our Healers Art is a very popular one. We have medical Spanish. We have the DPP. We have a global health. We just have a number of activities for electives that you may want to participate in. Many of both our electives and our clubs are interprofessional, so you could be in them with people from the other programs. We also have a large amount of research, both on and off our campus. And I just put some labels from the different organizations that may appeal to you. I want to talk for a second about helpful hints when you apply. You're going to have your primary application, which is the ACOMAS. Steve has taught me to use the word clearinghouse, so I'm trying to remember my words. This is where you send in your first application to be considered for an osteopathic medical school. It has to be marked complete there, and then they send them to the schools that you check off that you wish to apply to. You will have a personal statement in there, and it talks about focusing on why you want to be a physician. Often, and it is, by the way, let me start with, it is completely acceptable and fine that you apply to both osteopathic and osteopathic medical schools. It is not a sin. We do not look down on you for it. It is very encouraging when I recognize, and I'm reviewing applications, that you've actually taken the time to write 2 separate personal statements so that one focuses on being a DO and the other one probably focuses on being an MD. Often they don't. Often they're copied and pasted, which means that personal statement from the ACOMAS application says nothing about being a DO, which is unfortunate. I will tell you that I'm not sure where this rumor started, but someone started a rumor many years ago that what you should do is sound like a storyteller. It was a hot night in July when the ambulance arrived. If I'm reading your application, I want to read it. I'm reading it because you've met certain criteria and you're being invited for interview. You don't have to write a story that's going to catch my eye. What you need to do is tell me why. Who are you and why do you want to be an osteopathic physician? That's what's meaningful. Then you're going to have a second, if you meet all the criteria, minimum criteria, our school will send you a secondary. We don't send them to everybody. We only send them to the people who meet our minimum criteria. And that will save you some money, actually. There are schools that do send to everybody, but we believe that we don't want to give anybody false hope. But we will tell you what you're missing or how you might change something if that's what you wish to do. In the supplemental, it'll be why, more specifically about why osteopathy. Why do you want to be a DO? Why 2Com? Why are we the school? How do your personal experiences, academic and non-academic, make you fit for this profession? And I will encourage you, as I look at my slide with a typo, because it should say non and not no academic, proofread all your applications. The number of times we have seen, and the reason I want to be an MD is, or in the supplemental, I really love Western because we know you're applying elsewhere. It's fine. We want you to apply broadly to wherever you want to go. but you should take the time to make sure the application you're sending into each institution is unique for that institution. If you should get an interview, I can't stress enough to be yourself. This is your chance to get to be known by us. Know your application. A lot of you will want to list a lot of things that you do, and you've all been active, and it sounds good. But if what you did on a research project was simply gather, recruit people to join it, and you really don't know anything about that research project, maybe that's not the number one research project you list in your application, because we may ask you to tell us about your research. And if you really don't know about it, now we don't know what to make of that. It makes you sound like you're building something up that wasn't really there to be built up. And it actually happened recently where a candidate wrote in his application about saving a relative's life. And when it was brought up in the interview, actually said, I have to admire his honesty, I guess. I think I embellished that a little to make the story sound good. And while I appreciate his honesty, it sort of poked a teeny tiny hole in my balloon, and the air was now, oozing out, because it was disappointing. I would have much rather that he focused on how he felt during that, even though it was about his grandmother being sick. I was very scared. I was only 11 years old. You get the idea. And be engaged. We do group interviews for Touro, and they're on Zoom. Paying attention to what the others are saying when you're not talking, nodding, smiling, showing involvement is important. If we see you looking at your phone, if we see you staring at the ceiling, and you can't hide that even on a Zoom screen, it's disappointing. Will it guarantee you're not going to get in? I'm not going to tell you that, but it sends a message. And I think you all can appreciate that. A little bit about our curriculum. Right now, our preclinical curriculum, all of our curriculum is competency-based. In the first 2 years, you'll have integrated systems, which is a systems-based foundational science curriculum, osteopathic doctoring, which is a skills-based curriculum. You're actually learning to be it includes interpersonal skills and communication using ultrasound, suturing, doing physical exams, and clinical reasoning. Our students currently all are given their own ultrasound at the start of school, their own handheld ultrasound. Also, our osteopathic principles and practice course, which will teach you the principles, practice, and history of osteopathic medicine, as well as all of the manual medicine for diagnosis, prevention, and treatment. Our competencies are based on the American Osteopathic Association Student Guide to Competencies, and you can see them all here: osteopathic principles and practice, medical knowledge, patient care, interpersonal communication skills, professionalism, practice, learning, and improvement is about evidence-based medicine, and system-based practice, which is everything from self-care to working with special populations. And then we added an 8th competency, structural competency, and it's unique to the institution. We have a focus on student wellness with all of our extracurriculars, our global health, our student-run free clinic, research, diabetes. I've talked about all of those. There's just so many things you get to do. Sometimes the bigger reminder from people like me is don't take on too much. Remember, you still have to study. The upper picture is in our former OMM lab. We are now in a brand new building called Truett Hall, and the lab is immensely modernized. So our campus, and I think, Stephen, we probably want to announce it's on, watch our website on September 28th. We will be having an open house. We call it usually preview day. It's a chance to come and see our campus, interact with several different opportunities. We even do things like mock interviews. We focus in our curriculum also on our WARM program, which stands for Wellness, Academic Achievement, Resilience, and Mindfulness. This is something we developed a while back to help students with self-care. It's actual time built in the curriculum, 6 times a semester for 2 hours. Both first and second students will have a block of no education time. We will often have student-led events, everything from dumpling making to meditation, hiking, painting, whatever. And we have people who run that. We also have warm mentoring sessions. Every student is given a faculty mentor at the start of school, and at least once a semester you must meet with them. But many of my mentees, for example, meet with me almost monthly. I have others who only feel they need to meet once a semester. We give them the space to do what they need, as long as they're not struggling academically. If they're struggling academically, usually I tap and look in on how they're doing. And it's woven into the curriculum and fabric of who we are as an institution. Everybody always wants to know about clinical rotations, so let's talk about them briefly. In the third year, you will be at core sites. These are regions all within the state of California, with the exception of one in New York, that our students ask us to keep. You will have 8 weeks of internal medicine and 8 weeks of family medicine, 8 weeks of surgery, 4 weeks of pediatrics, 4 weeks of psychiatry, 4 weeks of OBGYN, 4 weeks of elective, 8 weeks of something called clinical distinction, which are 2 4-week blocks or 1 longitudinal 8-week block, where the student creates their own educational experience to help differentiate themselves to residency programs. This was created when we recognized that the boards were going to pass fail and students may need something more to stand out, and not stated on that in those 4-week requirements is 4 weeks is vacation. In the fourth year clinical curriculum, you are choosing where you get to go. You're not in the lottery for the core sites. You're going to pick where you want to go. And these are the topics you have to cover. And that's because this is when you're doing your audition rotations for residency. You're now wanting to go to some of the places you want to be a resident and you want to be seen. So you'd have to do 4 weeks of emergency medicine, 4 weeks of PC being primary care, could be internal medicine or family medicine or pediatrics, 4 weeks of ICU. For example, if you want to be a pediatrician, maybe you want to schedule that at one of the hospitals you are interested in for residency in the ICU. If you really wanted to be a surgeon, maybe you want to do surgical ICU at a hospital. 2 weeks of P's and 2 weeks of OBGYN just literally changed, and I didn't think to fix this slide. It is now 4 weeks of elective. So instead of 21 weeks of elective, there's 25 weeks of elective. And then there at the end of the third year, beginning of fourth year, when you come back on campus for something called callbacks, where we do some osteopathic training, and just some reviews with you about fourth year. Also, there is 2 weeks of an OMM rotation in there. And then we have telemedicine, which is an online module of courses that you take. I've already said this, I think, but what stands out for me as what distinguishes us is our learner-centered. Our learning objectives are that we have the structural competency. We focus on humans and medical education. All of our clinical service lines. We have the Touro University Medical Group out of Stockton, St. Joseph's Medical Center, and we are involved in residency development and osteopathic recognition at a number of programs. Our personal and professional development opportunities that you've seen with global health, research, community service, leadership, public health. There's just so many things you can do. Things, if you want to learn more, please, every Friday from 12 to 1, we have something called Touro Talks, and you can get that information on our website. There's not a planned presentation, but usually I am there or another member of the faculty, and sometimes 2 of us, and at least a student. And you can ask questions about the experiences. We have our SHAD DO program where you can sign up for 4 hours to travel with a DO student, go to their OMM labs and their osteopathic doctoring labs with them or whatever else they're doing that day, and get a tour of the campus. If you're looking for mentorship, you can contact the Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California by contacting Cassandra at opsc.org, and she can tell you who's available. And of course, you can always look for the American Osteopathic Association, do.org, and look for their mentorship program as well. This is my email, and we'll put it in, Stephen will put it up again at the end, and I will be sending this presentation to Jubin to share with all of you. So I'm going to stop sharing so that I can be back just looking at this, and it's time to take some questions. Go ahead. So here we go.
So,
I recognize a name on here. I recognize Satya, who was just at a Touro Talks.
Cool.
If I'm not mistaken.
So Satya asks, she lays off with the first question. Hi, good morning. Given the recent class size expansion for TUCOM California, how is the school accommodating for more future students?
Okay, so we had to make a number of accommodations, as you would imagine. So I want you to imagine a business that's being opened up. and you have to go to the bank and get a loan. You give them what's called a pro forma, and you tell them what you need to do and when you need to do it. So we had to do that to be approved to increase our class. We have graduated increase in the number of faculty over the 4 years. So we added a certain number of faculty this past year because we're going to have a larger first year class. We have more new faculty coming in this year because we'll have an enlarged first and second year class. And this is part of the plan. We added staff. We assisted the university at their side for more folks, whether it's in Stephen's department in admissions or student services, mental health counselors. We added a health counselor. We have a brand new building that was renovated to accommodate our larger size classes, so that we have more spaces on campus to do that. We have more interviews to get to accept that larger class size. Yes, our faculty have more students to mentor, sometimes on a one-on-one basis. It was our very big concern, so appreciate you acknowledging that. But the reality is, after 1 year of this, we're all very pleased. We've met and talked about it. We're just so pleased that we don't feel our ability to have one-on-one relationships with our students has been deterred at all. So that's the good news. The good news is the students are getting what they need from the program. I didn't talk about clinical years. I guess I should mention we're also increasing the number of rotations, and we're looking to continue to grow residency so our graduates have someplace to go.
Next question. Can you please just excuse me. Can you please discuss how you would recommend writing about your activities? Dr. Wagner addressed some of this. I'm going to add an additional comment here. I don't know if any of you are involved in music and singing vocally. I'm part of a regional choir. I've been doing it now for about 15 years. And when you're rehearsing, when you're learning songs and such, when you're trying to trust me, this is going somewhere. To try to add emphasis, they have what's called the 80-20 rule, where you give 80% of your vocal volume, and then you cut back to 20% at certain points. And just adds emphasis, adds feeling to a song. I kind of reverse that for writing about activities, drafting medical school essays, and I call that the 20-80 rule, where 20% or less of the essay is mentioning what actually happened. And then 80% is talking about why that's important, how it impacted you, how it shaped your journey as a person in this life and into medicine. Now, understand, I said that. Medicine part's a little bit last. It should connect somehow, but we really want to know how that shapes you as a person. So whatever the activities are, briefly about what the activity is, mostly about how it shapes who you are today and why it's important that we know about it.
And how it's going to shape you in the future. How is it contributing to making you a better physician? Everyone on the face of this earth has a family member who will get sick and or pass away. Telling us that the reason you decided to be a doctor is because Aunt Susie had diabetes, it just doesn't ring true. Forget, most the physicians understand we did this, right? We had to do this. When I went to school, everybody wanted to say, why do you want to be a doctor? I want to help people. And that just sounds almost hollow. Of course you want to help people. You wouldn't be applying for this if you didn't want to help people. But tell me how that applies to you. So if Aunt Susie getting diabetes was what drew you, what was it about that? Oh, it was that Aunt Susie didn't speak English and I had to go with her even as a child to help her navigate talking to her doctors, or Aunt Susie didn't have transportation or insurance, and recognizing the needs of the community I live in. Now you're telling me more of a story. But it's not really Aunt Susie's diabetes.
Thank you. Talia asks, hello, I'm interested.
This one,
sorry,
what are the limits of being a PA versus a DO?
I realized I missed that one.
That's all right. So a DO is a fully licensed physician. No supervision needed. You can do anything you want. PAs receive less education from the standpoint that they do everything in less time. And they still require oversight from a physician. So in the state of California especially, and in most states, a PA must be affiliated with a physician and have a physician supervisor who reviews a certain percentage of their charts and their work. They are not fully autonomous. That is probably one of the biggest things.
Okay. Talia.
Also, I would just the other thing that I would add is like know where you want to practice because the PA is very different in California than in Nevada, and so there's like all of these like different scopes, and so just make sure you do that research and to know that because, but with a DO, you could practice, pretty much the same 50 states. So,
You can
I
practice
would,
that.
yeah,
uh,
I would add also that it generally boils down to a question of personality and what you want to do with patients. So, as Dr. Wagner mentioned, PAs operate under the I'm going to say direction or authority of a physician. Now that can mean many different things depending on the state and the supervising physician. For some, they have almost complete autonomy. They meet with their supervising physician once a month, once a week to review charts. For others, they can't so much as sneeze without consulting with their supervising physician. So, think of the physicians, MDs or DOs, as the top of the food chain or the team leader of the medical health team. PAs are part of that. They work very hard, but they can be limited in their ability to do things autonomously depending on the supervisory structure. So, yeah, do your research like that.
PA cannot be a surgeon. They can assist surgery with a physician. I can take your appendix out. I won't. I don't want to. I'm a family practitioner, but I could. I'm licensed. My license allows me to. Theirs does not allow them to do that they can only be there as an assistant.
Gotcha. Talia writes, hello, I am interested in psychiatry and I think I need to take additional coursework. My last bio course was in '07. What else should I do to prepare to apply and who can I speak with to help me develop a realistic timeline, especially as a single mom of two? Um, Talia, technically our prerequisite courses do not expire. So you could have taken a course in 1995 and it would still be good. Here's the issue. You're going to have to take the MCAT. And the MCAT pretty much requires fairly recent knowledge to make sure that you do well. You also, as part of the process, are going to have to secure letters of recommendation from two science faculty members who have taught you in a class. So, minimally, you'll want to take at least a couple hard science courses as refreshers and from which you can get those letters. I would say if you've been out of school for more than 4 to 5 years, then you'll want to take several courses. Again, just to make sure that you're getting back into the classroom setting, that feel, and you show some recent academic performance. In terms of timeline, you can reach out to us. I'll put the general admissions email in the chat. You can make an appointment with a counselor, and they can talk to you about what you need to do. Actually, I won't put any message in the chat. I can't do that, but I will send it to Jubin,
yeah,
who
you
can
can.
put it in the chat.
Yeah, you can. Just have to drop it
Okay.
down and put everyone.
I only have hosts and panelists. Oh, there it is. Never mind. That was okay.
Right.
Let me do that real quick.
All right. While you're doing that, I'll read the next question. Thank you, Dr. Wagner. You're welcome. Can you please explain how your admissions team may assess applicants with lower GPAs? What other factors might lead to a positive admission decision in such a case? So here's the bottom line. I'm not sure if Steve loves the fact that I'm always quite so transparent, but I believe in transparency. If you do not meet our minimum requirements, you will not proceed further in the application process. If you do not have a GPA of 3.0 or higher in science and overall, that's a hard stop. If you do not have an MCAT score of 500 or higher, that's a hard stop. Now, there's always caveats. If you were somebody who was slightly below those, but above a 2.45, I think, for the masters and a 490 on the MCAT, you could get into that program you heard me mention, the Master of Science in Medical Health Sciences. It's a one-year master's program taught by medical school faculty, along with doing research with them.
Can I interrupt for just one moment? Because I do want to make it clear, because I just put in the chat that there are no exceptions to our minimum requirements, and that is firm. So when we're talking about some of these numbers to qualify for direct application consideration to the medical school, you have to have cumulative and science GPAs of 3.0 or better as calculated by a COMAS, which is the application clearinghouse, and you have to have an a composite MCAT score of 500 or higher. There are no exceptions to that. What Dr. Wagner has gone into is there are alternative paths through the Master of Science in Medical Health Sciences program, which allow for lower uh, GPAs and MCAT because you're performing in the master's program.
Right. You're actually learning from the people who will be your medical school faculty. You're demonstrating your ability. Sometimes people have low scores because they had a bad freshman year of college, and that was years ago, and it just doesn't pick up high enough. You could get into our master's program and rock it. And that allows you to have had that happen to you. But no exceptions on if you're below. So that is just the hard and fast. I hope that answers your questions. What's the ideal timeline for applying to Touro? If you're talking about next cohort, now you're applying to a COMAS now. That's how that works. We are rolling admissions, which means that we have a whole lot of open seats come our first set of interviews in August. And by this time of year, as we're wrapping up the season, we're pretty full. But things change in Northern California. And my understanding now is pretty much all over the whole country. People change their mind, change the school that was their number one choice. Maybe they get accepted to a state school that offers them a different financial situation. And so we always do have a wait list, and people do come off the wait list at our school, but your chances are applying earlier. But as Stephen will tell you, because he's going to interrupt me and say it, apply when you're ready. If you are not ready, if you know your application isn't going to shine, then maybe this is not the year for you. Wait and get it ready so that when you do apply, we see the best of you.
Could I add? I share a story only because it is directly applicable here. Many years ago, I was on a panel with the directors slash deans of admissions from the UC Davis School of Med, Stanford, and I want to say UCLA. And this one young lady asked 3 different times in the 1 hour presentation, trying to elicit a response that suggested she was ready to apply. And on the fourth time, she asked a slightly different question. One of the other panelists just put his face in his hands and says, "You aren't listening to what we're telling you. You're not ready to apply, and there's no reason to apply now if you're not ready." Um, Many people think that, oh, I've got to do this because it's my life's plan to become a doctor by the time I'm 25, and I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Well, you've got to understand that for 2Com specifically, we'll get anywhere from between 4,500 and 5,500 applications each year for a class size of 189 seats. If you do the math, it's less than 5% of people that end up attending our program. It's very competitive. And what I tell people is if you can see weaknesses in your application, so can we. And if there are enough weak spots, we're just going to pass over you because there are many other people who are going to be qualified and not have those. So take the time to address weak points in your application. If you have a lower GPA, do something to address that. If you're missing specific coursework, if you're a social science major and your hard science background is a little light, maybe take some additional courses to show that you can do that. If you've taken the MCAT and you didn't do well, take time to explore your study. Why did you not do well? Talk to a learning specialist. Identify what you need to improve on and then do it. The process of getting into medical school is a marathon, not a sprint. And for some, it's a very long marathon, but it's worth it if you work hard and you get in. So you do keep that in mind. I'll jump off my soapbox now.
What is the residency match for the past couple of years, especially in competitive specialties? Our match rate is, in fact, I'm going to say it was 100%. I think it was like 99 point something percent. We have one student who I know of who did not match at this point, and everybody else matched or made a choice. So one student who really wants orthopedics and only orthopedics opted to do a research year with an orthopedic residency program. The idea is that they've encouraged her to do that because they believe that they would take her next year. Fingers crossed. But we match extremely well, including into competitive specialties. And the competitiveness of specialties varies from year to year. So, so you don't even know what's going to be considered competitive some years versus others. That said, about 60 to 70% of our graduates will go into primary care. Please remember that internal medicine is always general until you decide if you're going to go into a subspecialty and do a fellowship. So it's probably really a smaller number than that 60 to 70% ultimately, because if you go into general medicine and then decide to go into cardiology or pulmonary or endocrine, you're not going to consider yourself a general internist at the end of the road, okay? But where we track it through is through that first residency. We don't track through your additional fellowships. We know what our faculty have done, and we do track some of that, but that's not what's generally reported out, I should say. So anywhere from 30 to 50% of our graduates will choose a specialty that's not family medicine, internal medicine, or pediatrics. But our educational focus is on that. It's in our mission. Can I elaborate on the COMLEX versus the USMLE? Why are LSDOs taking it, and why would they take it at all? The last question is the best one, Hannah. They take it at all. They don't need to. They don't need to. That said, old habits die hard. And I can't, no matter how hard I try and make Steve laugh about it, I would do anything to go flush studentdoctor.net and Reddit away, because they tell you you have to. You do not. You especially do not have to take both if you're going into any of the more common specialties, the primary care, PM&R, where there's a ton of DOs. What we tend to advise our students here at TUCOM are, if you are applying to one of those highly competitive residents, I want to be a neurosurgeon. And right now, there are so few opportunities to do that, that maybe you do take both just to make sure you're not hitting the program where you've got the crotchety old program director who can't see past his or her nose and wants to see a USMLE score. But the reality is you don't. If you go on the NBOME, the National Board of Osteopathic Medical Examiners, the people who put out the COMLEX exam, and you look at their website, it lists the 9 different specialties who have already signed on saying the exams are the same. It's why nationally fewer and fewer are taking it. Fewer and fewer from our schools are taking it. But I have to tell you that it's $1 million income for the USMLE from DOs every year. So I'm going to publish this information for anyone, because they would get a budget hit. So we work with students about passing COMLEX. If our students want to take USMLE, that's fine.
And you have to also take a look at as well that there are 229 neurosurgery residencies, and there's 5,400 and something for family medicine. So
Right.
it's a scale. And so, but I think that also, like what Dr. Wagner said, old habits die young, or no, old habits.
Die
Anyways,
hard.
die hard. Sorry, die, die young. Is that in the olden days you had to take the USMLE to get into a non-osteopathic residency? I think that changed in
It has.
2012.
2012. So they
Yeah.
have the single accreditation system. All residencies are through the ACGME. Many of them have something called osteopathic recognition now. So it's a whole new system, and it works. We've had matches at UCSF in orthopedics. Last year was our first one of those ever. we get matches all over the country in a variety of specialties, and our physicians are extremely
Yeah.
successful.
If I may just I'll sum this up and be a little bit more blunt here. Um, Unless you're going for an ultra competitive residency, or I would say you really, really, really want to stay in a specific area within California, you may want to consider taking both the USMLE and the COMLEX.
And even
Other,
that's not necessary. Geographic's not even necessary anymore.
yeah.
At the
So
main.
otherwise, COMLEX is fine. And this is the blunt part. As the older physicians, I'm not going to say die out, but as they retire,
Die
the
out.
the new people are looking at things new ways, and they're comparing in almost all residencies now. Comlex is viewed equally as the USMLE. So there's not, by the time you get into medical school and you are going through this, it'll be much easier for you to secure a residency with just the Comlex.
So I actually, last night, one of my former mentees who just completed his family medicine residency and is moving into a sports medicine fellowship called to talk. I had asked him if he would talk to someone interested in family medicine, and he agreed. He wanted to let me know he had done it. And he was sharing with me because he was chief resident at a large program in California. And he was sharing all the things. One of the things that they are actually very frustrated with is sometimes a student takes both because they believe they need to. And for the level one versus step one, which is what USMLE calls it, they're both pass fail. So two P's. What if you pass COMLEX but failed USMLE? You can still graduate, but now they're looking at you failed it. They don't know what to do with that. And you don't have to take it again, but I think you kind of do because you got to show them that you were able to pass it. And it's level COMLEX step two USMLE. Now you have a score. What if one score is the COMLEX, one of them is really good and one of them is not? He said they sat there when they were picking when they were doing getting ready for their match, and he as chief resident participates in that. The program director just kept shaking his head going, I wish they would stop taking both. Take the COMLEX and be done with it if you're a DO, because I don't know what to do with a good score and a bad score. And when somebody doesn't know what to do with something and they have a whole lot of applicants for the same spot, you know what they do with the one they don't know what to do with. They put it aside and forget about it. So
Okay.
it's an interesting perspective to hear from someone who just was part of that process, that taking both is not necessarily in your best interest. You will hear many people disagree with that.
Next question.
Yeah, MD letters of recommendation, or how are they viewed? They're fine. We view letters of recommendation as letters of recommendation. Is it nicer if you have a DO letter? And I know there's another question further down about shadowing and stuff. So let's kind of take Deanna's and Hillary's and put them into one answer here. With regards, or whoever at the shadowing, sorry, Hannah's shadowing. If you are buying a house, do you not go look at the city, the town, if you have kids, the school districts, or do you just buy it off of the internet? I already know the answer. If you're buying a car and you've never had that type of car before, don't you go test drive it? See if it's comfortable? Heck, most of us, if we're buying pillows, don't just buy them off the internet. We go fill them in the store. It's one thing that'll get me to the store is something I have to sleep on. And yet you're going to pick a career, medicine in general, or osteopathy specifically, not go see it done. You are not required to have a DO letter. You're not required to have any physician letter for Touro. But it speaks volumes about your level of interest if you don't. However, in the initial screening to get to interview, Stephen's department does not look at that. They only look at the letters of recommendation requirement, which are the two from the science professors, the hard science professor committee letter. So the only people who are going to read your other letters are people like me who interview. So will we notice? Sure. Will that make me like you or not like you? No. Does not shadowing help you or not help you? Again, it's sort of how are you going to answer this question? And unfortunately, with AI being what it is, many people are now answering some of their questions using AI to help them write it. So when I read this amazingly written YDO statement that clearly somebody else wrote, and you can't answer my question about why your hobbies apply to it or whatever, and you haven't shadowed, you're sending me this message for the truth of it or not, that you didn't care as much about being a DO as you're trying to convince me you do. So does that mean you won't get in? Absolutely not. It just means that we look at it and notice it. You've bought things before, you've shopped for things, maybe you've had a job and interviewed people. What are the things you look at? What are the things that are good and bad? And how do you make your decisions? So you don't have to shadow, you don't have to have a DO letter, you don't even have to have an MD letter, but it certainly speaks better if you have them. That said, the caveat here is a vanilla letter, a bad letter, don't bother. So learn how to ask for letters of recommendation. So if you spent some time shadowing a DO, or you know somebody, maybe you met them and had coffee with them a few times to learn about their path and learn about the profession, and now you're going to ask them for a letter. The question is not, will you write me a letter of recommendation? The question is, do you believe you could write me a good letter to help me get into osteopathic medical school? If they hesitate even a minute, say, thanks, don't worry about it, and make a plan B. Because that letter that says, that's one paragraph long and says, Joe is a great person. When he was in my office, the patients seemed to like him, and my staff said he was very polite and respectful. He'll do well in osteopathic medical school, tells me absolutely nothing. So think about all of those. This is when Steve says it's a marathon, it is. It's a process. Then you have choices in it. So that hopefully answers Hannah's question as well.
I don't
I
want
would
to I
just
don't want to
add,
scare anyone, but Mr. Davis, how many applicants did you have for this incoming fall 2025 schedule?
how many what?
How many
Applicants,
applicants did
somewhere
you
around
have?
5,000, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is that you have to understand that unfortunately in the real world is that if you're going for two things and if all things are equal, there's those very minor things that separate, you know. So it's, if you have a 3.9 GPA with another applicant, 525 MCAT, and you're applying, but the other person had, done all of these other things of, the non I call them the non-number things, like, they worked as an EMT, or they shadowed a couple of doctors, they've done all these different things. Who do you think that's going to get? And I think you should know, the answer to that, and that's what it comes down to. And, they're very, very, very smart people that do admission, and they've done it for a while. And they're very smart to be able to pick that out. And, and it's not fair, but that's the way the world is. And at the end of the day, they need to take the best people, because, if, let's say, Mr. Davis accepts 189 people in his class, and 40 of them drop out, there's going to be some conversations about, the performance, and Dr. Wagner are going to be talked to, is like, what are you guys doing? So in a sense, they need to get the best people that are going to compete at a very high level and graduate, because if you don't graduate, um, there's all these other issues that happen for an institution. So there's people that are accountable to everybody has a boss at the end of the day, and Turo needs to go to their, ACOM and all these other entities saying, hey, why we're not. So every institution has to answer to somebody in order to be accredited. And if you have people dropping out, disappearing, all those different things. So again, like, it's a very difficult process, and there's a lot of accountability. And I think the question earlier was, well, what is Turo doing to increase their spots? It's not like one day that, Mr. Davis wakes up and says, we're just going to update, it's got to be approved. It's got to go through all of these like steps that need to be taken. So like and this is a science. People have done this for a long time. And so bottom line is that you need to have all those ducks in order when you apply, because if you don't, then there's going to be somebody else that's going to have it. And so this is not to be cruel, this is not to be, but at the end of the day, their goal is for you to graduate and to be working as a physician, and help your community and be happy and all those different things. So again, we don't want to get, there's like all of these minutiae that you have to do, but it is a reason to it, and you may not understand it, but there's a reason for doing what they do.
Okay. I'm
Thanks
not
for
going
that.
to add anything. I agree.
The next two questions, Stephen, are both about the master's program.
Okay.
Linkage requirements, and Hillary, who apparently toured the other day with you and wants to know, and one of the questions is there any detriment to applying to both programs? And the answer.
So generally, no. However, here's most people I find that are applying to medical school are not independently wealthy, and both application processes require application fees and effort, right? So, at least for our master's program, I would say that I would wait. If I'm applying to medical school and I think I'm qualified, I would go that route first, and I'd wait until March or April. If I haven't heard anything, I'm not getting any love on my medical school applications, then I would look at applying to the master's program as a backup plan. That program will accept applications through like the end of June, I believe it is. So you've got time, and they don't fill up before the end of June, early July. So again, you've got time with that. I would delay and again, if I felt I was qualified for medical school, I would apply, see if I got any love, and if I didn't, then March, April, I'd look at alternative plans, including our master's program. The linkage requirement. So we made a change last year in our master's program to allow for guaranteed acceptance, in addition to the opportunity for a guaranteed interview to the medical school for master's students who meet certain criteria. That criteria is available on our website. I'm not going to go over all of it here. That's not the purpose of this presentation. But I will say that you can get either guaranteed acceptance or guaranteed interview through the master's program by meeting certain benchmarks. Look that up. We think it's a great thing. We had, I believe it was 13 master's students this year who qualified for the guaranteed acceptance. And since then, we have interviewed and accepted quite a few more under the guaranteed interview process. So our master's program does a very good job of getting people into our medical school. Master's programs generally are a good option. Here's my thought. I'm not a fan of homemade post-bac programs, meaning that you just handpick different courses that you take, or a post-bac program that's just a collection of courses. Because if it doesn't work, if you don't get into medical school, then all you have is a collection of courses. You don't have another degree that you can fall back on. So when looking at master's programs or post-bac programs, the very first thing to look at is, do they offer any type of direct linkage to one or more medical schools? Our master's program has the guaranteed acceptance and the guaranteed interview possibilities for our medical school, as well as for Touro, Montana. So you get the opportunity to be interviewed for two different medical schools, as well as it can feed into our PA programs as well. So there's options there. Hopefully that answers your question. Hillary, you had some additional ones. Let me look at that just a second here.
I know about applying, I think. While he's looking at that, Jubin there's a question about taking prereqs at community college. We don't necessarily look at where you take your prereqs. I will say this: if you are somebody who is not a science major, you do not have an abundance of science courses, and you took all of your hard science courses at institutions where the classrooms are smaller, there's not 150 people, 200 people in them, where you're not experiencing the rigor that is going to come to hit you in medical school, think about taking a course or two that offers that. could be community colleges out there that have 200 people in the classroom and it's a very rigorous course, then that's great. But if there isn't, if everything you took was to make it simple and easy, when you get here, it's 189 people in the classroom. And the flow, the volume and pace of medical school is like nothing you've ever experienced. So we always encourage students to have taken something that offers the same rigor because the hard science courses are hard. That's why we call them that. But we don't look to see where you took it. It doesn't have an issue for us at all. We don't look at it. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so Hillary, I've answered your question there. Satya, hi, and yes, hi again, Dr. Wagner Stephen. I have another question. How does the preclinical curriculum prepare students for diverse clinical rotations and experience throughout Northern and Central California?
That's the mission of that's exactly what the preclinical curriculum is designed for. It is focused on primary care. It is a system-based curriculum. You will have many hands-on experiences, each other, standardized patients. Our students are very well prepared for their rotations. I can tell you that we have hospitals that contact us because somebody went there on an elective and they said, how do we get more involved with your school? That's never an issue for us, but we do it through our primary care focused curriculum with a variety of learning activities that offer students an opportunity to learn in the way that works best for them. Our very close nature with our students, the way we help people who are struggling. And I'm not sure how I can give you that's a specific. It's the curriculum itself is set and designed to do this. I hope that answers your question, Satya. It's give you like a one-word answer to say we do it by doing this. We have team-based learning to encourage engagement with each other and group work. We have other small group activities. We have mandatory events. We have self-study events. We have asynchronous and synchronous things. So we make sure we're student focused and giving all different types of activities so students have a variety of learning opportunities. Okay. Can a high GPA and a master's help compensate? It cannot. Unfortunately, if you don't meet the minimums for the undergrad, other programs taken outside of our institution will not help you.
So,
He's asking if
oh
you
yeah. So do you get a guaranteed acceptance, a guaranteed interview? No, no, you do. No, you do not. Now, we need to be careful here that when you apply, the qualifying GPAs we look at are your cumulative GPA and your science GPA for all courses taken. So some schools will do that differently. Some schools will artificially look at just your most recent 30 or 60 units. We look at your entire record, and a COMAS includes every single um, course you've taken in those GPA calculations. So you can use a master's program, and many do, to bolster your GPAs for initial consideration. That is a viable thing to do. It doesn't, if it's not our master's program, it doesn't lead to any special consideration for us in terms of guaranteed interview or such. Now, caveat there are some the Touro College, excuse me, the New York Medical College, which is part of the Touro system. They have a master's program there that does have a linkage agreement with us, and we have a couple different undergraduate agreements with University of the Pacific and St. Mary's College, and one or two others that allows for consideration in our program. And if you go to those schools, you can get that information.
So generally, those are higher GPAs, not lower. The linkage usually requires because we're not interviewing. All right. So Devisha wants to know. So the DOMPH program, if you decide you want to do, there is a section of the primary application of your application when you get, I think it's on the secondary that allows you to say yes, you want to participate in our DOMPH dual degree. If you don't check it off, but change your mind after your interview and get accepted, you can still do it up until about now, because it was probably last week, the MPH classes for the summer before med school starts are starting or have started because they get their first the summer semester before school even starts is when they start. So you technically do apply separately, but you apply separately within the same application. It's just things you say yes or no to, and then you answer their questions. You don't have to wait to be accepted.
Yeah. And then again, that um, declaring declaring that you want to apply for the dual degree option or not has absolutely no bearing on your application to the medical school. That is something that just doesn't exist. You can get accepted whether or not you're interested in the dual degree program, and that would come in afterwards.
It's much harder to get into the US school than it is to get into
MP.
um, MPH school. I mean, MPH, you could pretty much, do it at any point.
Yeah.
Anonymous attendee, any
And
chance?
you can
Um,
actually still take ours if you didn't apply soon enough. It would, though, not necessarily be in the 4-year period. You might have to do an extra year to complete it. So it is that.
Yeah. Um, I would say that, yeah, it's our dual degree program is unique in that as currently being administered, it only adds 3 months, 2 or 3 months to your overall footprint of your graduate and professional school education. So you apply to the medical school, get accepted. You then apply for the dual degree option, and you get accepted to that. If you get accepted, then you begin classes the summer before medical school. So if you're applying for fall, they've already started in the dual degree option. They start in May. You complete a summer term and do 12 to 13 units in the MPH. You then do the first year of medical school, so fall and spring of medical school, and you come back during the summer between your first and second year of medical school and do an additional 12 to 13 units of the public health curriculum, and then continue on as per norm for your medical school. They don't do concurrent enrollment in these programs because they're both rigorous programs. You can't add a master's program on top of a medical school curriculum and expect people to succeed. During your clinical rotations, one of your elective rotations would then be a public health rotation that would count for both the medical school and the public health program. And then you would do the capstone or the CEF exam. I'm going to say the vast majority of our students take the CEF exam. It's a 300 question multiple choice exam, as opposed to doing a research paper. And then when you graduate with both the DO and the MPH degree. So,
I have two questions.
Sure.
no, sorry, we can't take questions from you.
I'll answer your questions, Jubin. It's fine.
Um, so the question is, what, uh, Dr. Wagner, what do you think what qualities and traits do you want to see in applicants to medical school, to your school?
Okay.
And what do you look for?
So I can give you the list that I'm sure you tell everybody. Be a self-directed learner, have a growth mindset, be self-aware, have good time management skills. Those all matter. Self is critically important. All of those things that you should be able to speak to. But I'm going to give you one that most people don't think about. By the time you enter medical school, you have gone from being at the top of your class, top 10%, 15% of the group of students you went to school with, to being in a room with 189 people who are all number one, who are all in the top of their class. Your classroom is made up of a very different group of people. And sometimes some students really do struggle with having a bad day, failing a test, forgetting to do assignments. But guess what? You are still a human being, and these things can happen. Life happens. Get sick, people have losses. Recognizing a struggle, asking for help, and the very most important thing, having the ability to give yourself grace is key. And don't sit home and wallow in it, but I like to say, have that good cry and then go ask for some help so that you can fix it. It isn't like a college course where you fail the first test and you have several months before the next test. And so you have time to figure out what to do. Your next test is a week from now or 2 weeks from now at the most. In the fall of first year, in 20-week semester, in just the Foundations of Osteopathic Medicine course, and by the way, there are 2 other courses, there are 13 major exams in a 20-week course. Then you can add the other 2 courses, which add another 9 exams. And yes, that does mean that at least 1 or 2 weeks has more than one exam in it. It's the way it works. And so you don't have a whole lot of time to, I'll wait and see how I do on the next one or the next one, because you are way too deep in the hole at that point. So give yourself grace, forgive yourself, go get help. Those are probably the characteristics I really want to see, because those are the most successful students. The students who are knocking on my door the day after a test going, I didn't do well yesterday. And I don't know why. I don't know why. Can you talk to me? Absolutely. We always make time. That is who we are as an institution, because we want you all to graduate. So those are some of the characteristics I look for. Obviously, compassion, empathy, all the things that a physician needs to have, the ability to communicate.
I also add, and I was trying to find the, I'm sure Dr. Wagner knows the acronym, what the acronym stands for, because it just recently changed. But all medical schools, all schools generally have support services that you pay for as part of your tuition and fees. So you've already paid for it. It's free to you at that point. Um, One of the support services we have is the OASIS. It's the
Office of
Stuff.
Office of Student Success and Institutional Support.
That sounds good. Yeah, I mean, it's close to again. It's new. They changed the name of the department a
It
couple.
was the Student Success Center
Yeah.
before.
Um, it is staffed with learning specialists and others to help you know how you learn, help you know how to study, help, I always joke with people that, let's face it, sometimes the final year in undergrad is not exactly the most difficult year you've ever had. Sometimes it's just a matter of catching up on all the things you haven't done yet so you can graduate on time. Um, Medical school is difficult. And frankly, it's generally made up of a lot of people who have type A personalities. They're used to being, as Dr. Wright said, they're used to being the top. I was the best in my class. Well, now you've got 189 students who were the best in their class. By definition and absolute reality, some of those students are going to find themselves quite the opposite, at the bottom of the class. Um, and that's a position that they may not be used to. So it's very important. If you take the first quiz and you struggle more than you thought you should, reach out to these services. Reach out to the learning specialists. Go to their as part of the orientation process. They'll have activities where you can participate in and kind of learn how you learn type stuff. Um, Figure out the strategies that work best for you. But as Dr. Wagner also said, do not wait. Medical school is cumulative for 4 years. Everything you learn builds on something else you were supposed to have learned previously. If you miss that previous topic, you're not going to do well in subsequent topics. So, take advantage of the services, reach out. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. It's extremely normal to
Yeah,
use those services and let them help you be successful.
that's our goal. What's your other question, Jubin?
Mr. Davis, you've done admissions for a bit. What are some of the good qualities and traits that you have seen in successful applicants? Not good applicants, not every applicant, but the ones that are successful that get into.
I'm going to say the number one trait for successful applicants is evidence of passion for what they're doing.
Amen.
Um, you know, uh, Sometimes we get into that race where we think, oh, I've got to do this, got to do that, got to do that, and we literally just check boxes. 8 hours this done, 12 hours this done. We don't take time to show why that was important to us, why we want to get into medicine. You know, I can when you're speaking with somebody, you can tell whether or not they're passionate about what they're doing. If they're just sitting there dead, there's absolutely no facial expression. They're not reacting. Their essays are very clinical. They're devoid of feeling. Those people won't be successful. We aren't looking to create robots. We want to train actual human physicians. And usually, I can't do that on this one because I can't see their faces. And normally on a presentation, if I see faces, I can ask the question, how many of you have gone into to see to a doctor's appointment recently, and you felt like that person really didn't care about you? You were a number on a list, and they were told they have to get through 30 of you in this
That's
day.
how you keep the lights on. Mhm.
Yeah. We can't have a physician workforce that leans that way. You are going in to see a physician because you've got a variety of issues. Maybe it's a mental health issue. Maybe it's an embarrassing physical issue. This is the one time where you have to feel comfortable talking to that person. And if they can't empathize with you, if they can't show a human side, chances are you're going to walk out of there and you'll never go back to them and maybe suffer because you don't feel comfortable seeing them as a physician. So we're again, passion and humanity probably the two biggest traits for successful applicants.
I
Yeah, I
think
could just
that's a big, I'm sorry, Jimmy. I was going to add also think about where you're in. If you get to the point of the interview, be prepared. I feel like I'm a Girl Scout here. Be prepared. It sounds like a silly motto, right? Be prepared. But we have seen everything from the word Toro misspelled to in an application, which is it's insulting. I'm sorry, it just is. You would be insulted if you saw that. To people who I'll ask a question and I usually will say, "Do you know who Andrew Taylor Still is?" And they say, "No." You then did not look up anything about osteopathic medicine because you can't look up osteopathic medicine and not see his name. It's okay that you don't know. I'll tell you he's the founder of osteopathic medicine, but you've now clicked something in my brain that says, boy, they didn't even know that little fact. And you can watch because we do these group interviews, and so all these faces on the screen, and you watch the kids who did their homework go, and now when you see, you're like, okay, I didn't ask an unreasonable question. That's interesting. And the last thing I would tell you is remember about anything you talk a lot about. Medicine is not about memorization. Your doctor doesn't take care of you well because they memorized a bunch of facts. It's because they can apply the information they learned to your specific situation. And so when you write a whole bunch of stuff about yourself, make sure you can apply it to why it's going to help you be a physician. If you can do those things with some passion in your voice, you nail the interview every time.
yeah, no, I think that the challenge is that you have to understand that um people that interview other people become very good at picking up cues, and it's not fair. And so that's why you practice, you video yourself. Certainly with this whole new, Zoom way, which is, cost is better, but it's not some of the best ways to do it. But you could really tell someone who gets the deer in the headlight, and you kind of feel bad about it, but it's kind of like you need to be prepared. And they say like when you press that send button, it's the next 10 years of your life. It's probably more than that, but yeah, but as a physician, you get to see people on the worst day, and you have to be good, you have to be competent, you have to not kill them, but you also have to make it because if they don't feel good walking away from you, they're less compliant and they're going to recover, and you want your patients to recover. Hopefully, that's what you're going into. Um, but yeah, I don't have any other questions, and I don't think any other questions. Any last words of wisdom?
I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining this webinar or whatever we're calling it and learning more about TUCOM. We're excited to show you our school. So by all means, go on our website, check out Touro Talks on a Friday. Satya will tell you we answer lots of questions and we talk to students and you get to hear things. Think about doing our Shadio program if you're local enough to do that and consider our preview day, which will be on Sunday, September, I think it's the 28th, whatever that last Sunday in September is. So watch our website to sign up for that. Come see who we are. Come learn about us and make sure we're the right fit. Because if we are, we're looking forward to meeting you and having you join our students.
There
This
is
is actually a great question.
I saw that. I'm gonna address this, and Dr. Rydick can chime in if she feels like she needs to. So it's hard to explain, but we've reviewed, thousands upon thousands of essay responses over the years. You can spot an essay that was fully generated by AI. The wording is just off enough that it's awkward. Um, so a fully AI generated essay, you're probably not going to get reviewed favorably, because
Yeah.
we're gonna pick
Yeah.
that up. However, we're not dumb and we're not against technology. Here, let me tell you how you can use AI. If you're writing an essay and there's a particular spot, like there's something you want to say and you just can't figure out how you should say it, then use AI to help with that.
Mhm.
Look what they're saying and then adapt it in your words. So where people run afoul of this is they take whole sections of essays that are AI generated and just plop them in to their response. Again, we can spot that. Take the help, rewrite, write it in a way that reflects who you are, and then use that. Okay. But fully generated AI responses are going to be spotted, and you're probably going to be overlooked.
I'll give you the issue for me. And this comes from a real life scenario. And someone used AI for their secondary on Touro. It was clear that they used AI. The wording is wording I've seen applications, but they really copied and pasted. They had the tenets. They did amazing information. And so I said, great research. I'd like you to apply this information to your hobby of X. And this candidate's response was, I don't know if I can do that. That's hard. Well, if you just wrote 3 paragraphs about what a DO is and you cited the tenets and you said structure and function, you can't relate that to a hobby or to a sport, then you actually didn't read it and really don't understand it because all you did was copy and paste. And I can teach somebody to copy and paste without making them come to medical school for 4 years. So if you're going to use AI, find a way to put some personal experiences in there so that it's not a copy and paste. You can use, as Steve said, to thing you can't figure out how to say and say, so in my life, that makes me think about my experience of X. And I think that relates to this, or my experience of Y, because that's what we're looking for. If you just do AI, it's no different than if you would have plagiarized a paragraph out of a textbook or some online site.
Yeah, no, and I think that a lot of some of the I think I know WMC has a detector on their application. I don't know if AACOM has one yet. I think I read something, there was something in the process. So yeah, so they have these detectors and they're really accurate. I would just say like I use Grammarly quite a bit, just because it does a really good job. If you pay for it, it's AI. If you don't, it's not AI. I think that's why I look at it. And so I use the free version for grammar. But yeah, if you do this whole, somebody posted in there, it goes, I should write something and have AI do it. You know, you could do it, but the problem is that AI adds a lot of things into it, and it may change what you've been trying to, or you could be like put out a health report where it has it's all AI generated and has errors in it. So that also is really embarrassing and really not what you want to do because it gets picked up pretty fast. And so and the other part of it too is Mr. Davis has read many, 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 many applications, and he's seen many, many of them with errors, and they got into DO school. So, if you want to be perfect, you know, I understand your desire to be perfect, but perfect is robotic, I guess you could say. So, you're going to make errors. You're going to have grammatical errors, and
Yeah, let me just jump in there. An occasional error in the application is excusable. We'll overlook those.
Mhm.
Um, Having all of your essays address Western University of Health Sciences instead of Touro, we will likely not overlook that. So, again, it's human. And remember, this will be my final point here. Remember that your medical school application essays and responses are about both breadth and depth. Okay. AI can give you breadth. It can't necessarily give you depth. So take those suggestions, adapt them to your individual circumstances, and then use it that way. And I think we want to be, it is 11:35. We want to be mindful of everybody's time. So
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you again for coming, and hope everyone has a great weekend and rest, and thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. So
thank you for the invitation. It was our
thank you
pleasure.
again, Dr.
Absolutely.
Wagner. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
And hopefully we'll see some of the folks who are on here at one of our events.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take
Bye.
care. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.